not really thinking about maybe retiring, you know, every day things about that from the time they were probably like 8. But I mean, I just was looking around, I think Brian and Carol, you guys went to Carson Newman, right? Or she did? Like almost everybody in here has a Carson Newman connection. Mary Baldridge will laugh. On the 3rd floor of Henderson, Mary teaches across the hall from us in the English department, and we talk about the intangibles like they're a new comic book or something. But intangibles. There's 7 former students of mine here, several creative writing students, and I'm just kind of overwhelmed by that. You guys are my intangibles. So, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks to Linda Parsons for representing Madville Press today, definitely. And to Kim Davis, shout out to her. Madville it's just working its own little miracles, I think. I really do. It's just amazing to be part of such a literary community. So, this is Genesis Road. I'm so happy. I'm so glad that Jeff said that you wrote those poems between 2004 and 2008. A book takes a long time to make, and I think it's great for students to hear that. I was just talking to my former students, Rebecca Bogle. Her mom is here, and she went to Carson Newman, and she was saying that she wished Becca would write again, but she's got babies, people get busy. Books take a long time to put into the world, and honestly, I feel guilty. Dave and I, in private moments, say, we kind of thrived in the beginning of the pandemic. We really thrived. I looked at this little thing blinking on my computer about June of 2020. I hadn't opened my novel file in 7 years, and I think I had just kind of moved back into poetry and I had moved on. But my husband's telling me to speak up, and I do need to. Pauletta led an Alzheimer's writing group one Saturday that I was part of. My mom has dementia, and that helped me a lot, but being unable to go see my mother during the pandemic was just excruciating for me. I don't know really how I survived it. The only way I survived it was digging this book back up, resurrecting it, and it just really saved my life. I was so glad to have this rough draft. The afternoon I went to look at it, blinking on my computer, I told Dave, I'll be back downstairs in 5 minutes. I'm going to probably read the first paragraph and be so embarrassed in my own skin, I'll just go back in. And we'll have some bourbon or something. And I just fell in love, like right away. It was just like, oh my gosh, who wrote this? I know that students especially have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting forever and ever, but a lot of you are probably waiting on your own projects to come to fruition. Just don't ever give up, and we tell our students that. Thank you to Jeff and Pauletta for being here today. To celebrate this with me, you'll always be we'll just be triplets, I guess. You guys just heard 2 of the finest poets working in I'm so honored to be able to read with them. It's a dream come true to have you guys here. I'll just start with the first chapter. I wasn't going to, but seeing all you friendly faces made me brave enough. I think that this book should come with probably trigger warnings, maybe, as the youngins call them today. I've written a book that's very much in some places about the female body, about some experiences that I never went through. The book opens with a miscarriage, and there are infertility problems amok through the book. It's about so many other things, though. It's also about a journey that the 2 main characters, the first person narrator, Glenna Daniels, and her best friend from elementary school, Carrie. Carrie is a gay history professor who provides a great foil for her across the United States because he knows the history and he's been on those kinds of trips. Glenna has never been out of Appalachia very much, just barely. even though she has a master's degree in social work and is a social worker in Knoxville when all these tragedies befall her and they go on this road trip. I don't think you need to know anything else. I am going to read a little bit also from their first real touristy stop along the way. Carrie is looking for Americana, and so they go to Graceland. And I hope savvy readers will understand that that is in the chapter, the second chapter, that's about Glenna's father's funeral. So she has buried her dad, and then they've gone on this trip. And so Graceland, of course, means many, many other things in that chapter and beyond. The first chapter is called Gravity. Robert Geik, the wonderful Appalachian novelist, has a chapter called Escape Velocity. And that's basically what this chapter is about. Like, am I going to get the heck out of Appalachia or not? Gravity. My house was a grave for the baby I lost there. And when it burned to the ground a few weeks later, then it was Daddy's grave too. Any remains of him the firemen didn't find are tangled forever with the baby I will never have. My mind's eye threatens to wander again and again to the dying my daddy suffered. It takes all the energy I have to focus on the not seeing, so I punish myself with the other losses. The gore that won't stop flickering, all the woodwork burned, even the oak banister and newel posts I refinished with a toothbrush. The tile I laid in the bathroom, the chrome fixtures, the bed Kevin built for us where I conceived and miscarried, pictures of Mama holding me as a baby, the heirloom quilt handed down from Granny Pearl's mother, my wedding rings, all three of them. Nothing but a heap of black on the 6 p.m. Knoxville news, black tumbling walls giving up ghosts of smoke, and firefighters in their yellow suits dragging hoses through my tulips, 20 seconds of my life in ruins. I want to ask the viewing audience slurping down their supper, did you ever beg somebody to stay? Would you beg to stay someplace you love? I wonder if they've ever really thought about Adam and Eve, the most famous exile ever, poison ivy and kudzu choking over the path behind them, and the whole civilization knows them for millennia as the first real true fucker-uppers. I've never met even the most forgiving Christian who feels one bit sorry for the ancient grandparents we all supposedly come from. Of course, maybe that's because our family hardly ever went to church when Dunn and I were kids. Mama was too busy keeping us alive. Daddy was still too drunk every Sunday morning, and religion is not exactly rated PG in Newport. We're talking Pentecostals and hollers out toward the mountains, holy rollers in the aisles drinking strychnine. I dated two boys who grew up handling snakes in church. They believed they could heal by laying on hands, who did plenty of laying on of hands with me. Granny Pearl used to talk Bible to me, but I told her way back then that I was right fond of Eve. What did she do so wrong to get thrown out of paradise? In psych class my first semester of college, I perked right up to hear that we always blame the mother. It's exponential how much blame we heap on the mother of us all. We forget, without her sex and sin and agony, none of us would even be here. Never mind that any second we might be headed into exile ourselves, bare feet blistered and sooty, nothing but sky and stars for shelter. The past, a sunken garden of regret. Wow. And so this is, Carrie and Glenna have been to Beale Street and thought they had all the time in the world, and they didn't have all the time in the world. Remember, this is a funeral chapter. Graceland is hard to find. Harry swore we left Beale Street in plenty of time to make our tour. He said he was sure he would have remembered the back streets he and Stan had taken to get there. Past railroad tracks he crossed and recrossed. In industrial parks we turned round and round in, through slums and projects and shopping centers that he found unfamiliar. Finally, on the highway we were looking for, we hit a snarl in traffic. It's a wreck, I can see. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel and checked his watch again. It's 15 till. I held our tickets in my hand like playing cards. We'll make it, I promise. Past the clotted crossroads, past clapboard houses gave way, faded clapboard houses gave way to pastures and trailer parks and revived a half-boarded-up strip malls. We passed flat, busted, rusted-out gas stations, laundromats and Chinese restaurants, liquor stores and pawn shops, and check-cashing rental centers. At red light intersections, black people waited for evening buses on cracked sidewalks, crawling with weeds. Everything that had grown up along Elvis Presley Boulevard was the red-headed stepchild of Graceland. The tacky hugged up to the decadent, just like Elvis. Poverty surrounded the kingdom. Finally, down the highway, we spotted the entrance to Graceland, but we hit every light red behind delivery trucks and grandma drivers. Carrie's Elvis tape was on its third go-round for the day. The dashboard clock gave us 2 minutes to make our tour the last tour of the day. Somehow, 10 minutes later, Carrie still believed we'd make it. Some miracle would happen, and we'd slip through the gates. He bottomed out on a speed bump in the parking lot, did a half donut into a parking space. "Where'd we go?" I caught a little of his faith. We got out and slammed our car doors, running as we looked. I could see the visitor center and Elvis's jets. "Yeah, this way, come on, Glenna." The girl at the counter told us the last tour bus had just left. Carrie argued with her about our tickets. He asked for the manager, asked for a refund, a rain check for the next day, all sold out. I looked out the window, trying to see Graceland, but there were just cars and pavement and walls. Outside the visitor center, he pointed across the highway. At the crest of a long hill, obscure in the shade of tall trees, Graceland sat like a movie set facade. I squinted to try and make it fit what I'd imagined, some opulent, gloried spectacle. Instead, it was just a subdivision house on steroids. White columns and a bland, overblown confection of mortar and brick, tried too hard. We walked through the lot, and when traffic stopped for the light, we crossed the highway to the foot of the sloping driveway. Elvis may have built the first gated community all to himself. The double gilded gate was enormous, the two sides shaped like elaborate harps. The tour bus was parked at the top of the hill and visitors were piling out. "We just missed it," I said. "I'm sorry, Glenna," Carrie said for the dozenth time. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "Well, you, for God's sake, give it a rest, Carrie." "But it's all my fault." "It's not your fault. What is it anyway that people come to see?" We kept watching the gate as if it might swing open for us. Nothing but a gaudy house nobody lives in, with a kitchen nobody uses, pianos and guitars nobody plays, a swimming pool nobody swims in. Well, people come to see where he's buried with his parents. What kind of people pay to see some stranger's grave? People who probably never go to their own family's graves. "I know you're just trying to make me feel better," Carrie said, "but you have to be disappointed." "Name me one thing that's not disappointing." I turned my back on the whole place and pushed the button for the crossing light. The city on a hill. Is that what Elvis wanted? Some kind of paradise for himself to show off? I've been remembering when I was a kid, all those descriptions of heaven, all the stuff about streets paved in gold, that freaked me out. And all the crowds, like this place with bajillions of people. "I don't think that many people get in," Carrie said. "You mean here or actual heaven?" The light changed and we headed back toward the car. "So you do believe in it? Heaven?" His voice squeaked. "I guess that's too personal." "Well, I mean, no. We've been personal from way back, but I mean, we've never talked about it before, have we? About Stan?" "I never asked and I wasn't there. I think it doesn't matter what anybody believes," he said. "I mean, is there an omnipotent being so needy that he, she, whatever requires you have to believe, like Tinkerbell or Santa Claus, and then you get to come to the party?" We came to the parking lot again and he stopped to look back at Graceland. I kept walking and he caught up. At the car, I grabbed the car door handle and willed myself not to look back. "I really try not to think about it," he said. "I mean, when I think about Stan being somewhere, anywhere without me, it could drive me a little loony." He laughed softly. "Watching me? I mean, eat oatmeal or drive to work? It's just not something I can dwell on. I know you and Glenn weren't, well, it was rough, but when somebody dies, give it time." We got into the car. I could have told Carrie about the baby then, that I imagined the lost child somewhere okay and whole. But why did it have to be a kid? Maybe that soul or whatever was ancient, maybe an old spirit, just trying to get back to another start. What were the words that could do any of it justice? I had never sensed a body or the slightest flutter, but there was an essence, something separate from me, but with me. People around the globe argue about when it's a baby. I had learned the hard way. It's a baby when you believe it is. I just haven't believed hard enough, maybe. As if he could read my brain, Carrie said, maybe heaven's nothing more than what we want to believe, a wish. He started the car and closed his door. The AC washed across me. So you think we get a do-over, I said. Remember, tickets for tomorrow are sold out, he said. At first I didn't follow him. No, a cosmic redo to go back and fix our mistakes. Oh, that's way too hopeful. He pulled out onto the highway, heading west again. I mean, that could be a hell of a lot of work. Like AA, making amends. Just little things, but maybe we get to pick what the do-over is, I said. My daddy, for all his abuse, had a beautiful voice. It was the best thing about him. I couldn't say out loud what I wished. A person's death is not like candles on a birthday cake. I told Carrie I really needed to leave the music off for the drive to the campground. If I couldn't hear Daddy singing Little Sister ever again the way he used to sing it just to me, then I didn't want to hear anybody sing it.